Evening, everyone. This is the State Licenses and Permits Committee of Community Board 5. I'm Seth Borden, your committee chair. And before we get started, we will quickly go around the Zoom room so that committee members can introduce themselves. Committee members, feel free to jump in. I know the order is not so clear when you're online. Let's start with Milan.
Oh, hi, everybody. My name is Milan Mijatovic, a member of SLAP and the Landmarks Committee, also our secretary for CB5.
I'm Samir Lavingia. I'm also a member of this committee, and I'm the second vice chair of the community board. And I'll pass it on to Todd.
Hi, I'm Todd Shapiro, longtime member of SLAP. I'm here to participate tonight.
How about Tom next?
Hi, I'm Tom Ricardo. Nice to meet you all.
Perfect. And Catherine? Oh, I think you're on mute, Catherine. But no worries.
Hi, I'm Catherine, CB5 board member.
Thank you, Catherine. And then Kevin?
Hi, I'm Kevin Thompson. I'm a member of the committee.
Perfect. And last David is on my screen here.
Hi, David Shapiro, member of CB5. Thanks.
Thanks.
And I'm Yoden Vonden. I'm a member and vice chair of SLAP.
Thank you, Yoden. Usually I start with you, Yoden. I went the reverse order this time. All right, perfect. So we have 3 items on our agenda tonight. The first is new business, and then a second we'll have a discussion of the legislation, which was reintroduced in the City Council about 2 weeks ago by Councilmember Lincoln Ressler on the city's outdoor dining program. And then the third will be an internal item, so we'll actually sort of close to the public and just discuss an internal item. Should be fairly fast. So before we get started, I want to clarify for anyone who's online that boxers and Taj are not on the agenda for tonight. It's likely that we will cover them at our next meeting, which is on March 17th. But please do check our newsletter for the latest. So I just wanted to let you know in case that was what you were waiting to comment on. So with that, we'll get started. First is new business. So is there anyone attending, including members of the public or members of the committee, that has any business for the committee other than the items on the agenda? Please raise your hand, either in the room or the waiting room. All right. Seeing none, new business is closed. So with that, we'll move on to our first item, which is not an application, but it's a discussion we want to have on whether and how we want to comment on a legislation that was reintroduced by Councilmember Ressler a few weeks back. And this would expand access to roadway and sidewalk cafes. And our goal tonight will be to decide both whether to weigh in on the legislation, and then if so, what we want to include in the letter. So the process here will be as follows. First, we'll have 2 speakers just introduce the topic. First, we have Samir, who will give a quick overview to summarize key points. And then Todd, as he mentioned, will give additional background based on his experience as chair of the Open Restaurant Task Force. After that, we'll have a Q&A session where members of the committee can ask questions. And then I'll open the floor to the public for comments. After that, I'll put the committee into business session, during which only committee members will discuss the topic. During the business session, the committee will discuss the topic. There will be a motion, and then we'll vote. And then if we have quorum, we do have quorum today, so the vote of this committee will be our recommendation to the full board, which will meet next on Thursday, March 12th. And then the vote of the full board at that point will be CB5's position. So with that, I will start by handing it over to Samir, who can quickly walk us through the legislation. And Samir, let me know if you'd like me to flash up that deck. Otherwise, happy to just have you voice over as well. Either work well for me.
I think we can just talk about it. So
Yeah,
there's a few reasons this is coming to us now. So a few months ago in December, the Transportation Committee reviewed a different intro called Intro 1444 that was going to change the clear path requirement for sidewalk dining, so not for roadway, but it used to be, or still is, in parts of our district, 10 or 12 feet, and that intro would have limited it to 8 feet. So we talked about that, and when we were talking about that, we intentionally did not talk about what was then intro 1421, which is what we're going to talk about today. Now it's, the number has changed because it's a new year, so now it's 0655-2026. But, basically a lot of community boards, when they were weighing in on intro 1444, they also had opinions on the year-round outdoor dining. We intentionally split it up because we wanted to split it between the committees. And so now we're talking about intro 0655. So this introduction is introduced, as you said, by Councilmember Ressler. The idea is basically, when we used to have outdoor dining during the pandemic, it was kind of a free-for-all. But one of the things they had was year-round outdoor dining. And when the program was formalized, we got rid of that year-round structure. So pre-COVID, we had sidewalk cafes, no roadway dining. During COVID, there was the emergency order, which had year-round outdoor dining. And then Intro 31 in 2023 set up today's program, which limits us to 8 or 9 months of the year for roadway dining. Sorry?
I think that was a speaker unmuted, but you're good to
Great.
Yeah, thanks.
So this intro 0655 would expand the city's outdoor dining program to allow a few things. It would allow grocery stores to apply for sidewalk cafe licenses. It would remove the seasonal restrictions on roadway cafe operations, so it'd be able to be year-round, and provide the option to expand frontage for certain cafes upon consent. So for those are hopefully pretty self-explanatory, but for the retail food establishment, they would be able to set up tables on the sidewalk to be able to sell food items, and I guess have people sit and eat. If you've been to Whole Foods or different restaurant or different grocery stores, sometimes they have restaurants inside, so this would allow them to have seating outside and on the sidewalk. For the roadway dining, right now, roadway dining is available from April 1st to, I think, November 29th. But this would change it to make it so you can operate year-round. And then it would, so from January 1st to December 31st. And then lastly, it would allow certain restaurants to basically, I think, borrow the frontage from the other restaurants or from their neighboring businesses to basically have a little bit of an expanded roadway cafe. So that the maximum that they could do that is, I think, 20 feet. And they would have to get permission from the abutting property owners and the commissioner. So right now, the Department of Transportation Commissioner to do that. I don't know how frequently that will happen, but those are the three main things. So just to go over it again, allow grocery stores to have sidewalk cafes, not roadway dining, removing the seasonal restrictions on roadway cafe operations so it can operate year-round, and then allowing restaurants to basically make deals with their neighboring businesses to have a little bit more space and expand in front of their business instead of just the business of the operator. Hopefully that is sufficient, but if not, I'm happy to address any questions or comments.
No, that's perfect. I think you covered all the key issues at a high level. We'll break for questions here now, and then we'll have Todd give his comments, but I think maybe questions in between. So please raise your hand if you have any questions based on what Samir reviewed.
I think maybe one last thing I want to add is there are groups that represent restaurants like the New York Hospitalities Alliance. They truly believe that this is probably one of the biggest barriers to roadway cafes. So part of the reason we see so many fewer of them compared to during COVID is because especially small restaurants just don't have the capacity to tear down roadway cafes and then put them back up. And then it's like, where does that storage go and so on and so forth. So they really think that this is the main blocker for a lot of, especially our smaller businesses, from being able to have roadway cafes.
Perfect. Thank you, Samir. And I see we have Milan with his hand up. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So I think I understand like the idea that grocery stores are eligible. Cafes can be effective like year round, right? So we're removing restrictions there.
Yeah.
Smaller restaurants. Does the process change at all? Like, is it the same? Are we assuming that the application process or all of that stuff is going to be the same, or is that going to change too? Because I wasn't sure if that's
Mhm.
possibly something on the table.
No, it's the exact same process. It does the regulation or the introduction. I'll put it in the chat. So if you want to scroll through it and read it, it underlines the things that are changed, and there's no change to the process. It's purely just being able to be around the grocery stores and then the sidewalk frontage.
Okay, thanks.
Perfect, thank you. And any other questions from the committee before we turn to Todd to give additional background? And Samir has just put the detail of the intro in the chat, so please feel free to look at that for more information as you listen to Todd's comments. So Todd, with that, we will turn it over to you to give additional background.
Thanks, Samir, and that's great. And Samir did a great job of narrowly focusing on what's at stake with these changes in the law. What I have, and you can check the chat, there's a copy of my full comments, which are broader in scope. I basically thought this was a great chance for those who are new in the committee or looking in to educate themselves on how the open dining program evolved and the positions that were taken by the community board over time. Samir was great. He served on the task force with me, along with Tristan and some other people. So Samir can correct me if my memory fails me, but definitely take a look at the link. I'll just go through my comments in brief. You can read the comments. It's basically a history in broad terms of the policy decisions and the issues related to open dining. So
Todd, before you continue, can I just interrupt? I actually didn't see a link in the chat. If you wanted to reshare that, unless others are seeing it, I just want to make sure that actually got to the members.
I am not seeing it.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, Todd, if you wouldn't mind, it may be that it's in the chat but not sent. I did that a couple times.
Hold on a second.
Yeah. And I also have that link, I think.
That's strange. What am I doing wrong here?
And maybe it also sent to just one member. It's always possible.
Can I add something? I just saw a message from Josh in response to Milan's question about the any change in the application process, and largely no, but there is the community boards will no longer be able to seek additional documentation, I guess, beyond the application itself. Is that correct, Josh? I don't know if he's there.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Where does it? Oh, yeah, you're right. I missed that. I'm sorry. At the very end, it says the community board shall not require the petitioner to supply the board with additional written materials other than the petition and the agreed upon modification. So you're right. Thank you, Josh.
Okay, so I just tried again. Does everybody see the link?
Yes, we can see that now.
Okay, so I'm just going to go through this. It won't take long. It's probably worth listening to. At the bottom of the Google Doc, you'll see, or the document is actually the actual resolution that was passed by the community board after the task force issued its report. So it's well worth reading. Samir was involved in that, along with some other, and Tristan and some other people. It reflected a consensus of the board at the time, as to how we should treat with this issue. And as far as I know, it's still valid. So the board came out with some other resolutions over time, I believe, as we went through as the city council went through all the stages of comment and whatever, and there were some letters issued, but that's invaluable reading. And then, of course, the report itself, right, which has all sorts of interesting data, and issues and the opinions of all the community board members. So I'll just quote from it, from my comments. The program's successes, many of which resulted from policy proposals put forth and endorsed by CB5, supporting the task force recommendations, included new regulations that altered the nature and footprint of outdoor structures, moving them towards a more Parisian European style with lightweight tables, umbrellas, dividers, bollards, restrained signage, and other furniture that is less intrusive and can be moved and stored as necessary. This effectively banned by statute the pandemic era sheds that were unsanitary, immobile, and perceived as eyesores and a blight on the community. What was acceptable as an emergency measure was not appropriate as a permanent feature. And that would really include, to my mind, the ones that were the curbside cafes. Those were really, a big problem. And I would say generally, as we review this, if they're going to go full year, right? And in the news articles I saw, it seemed like the way they were referring to it, that there might be some efforts to change the regulations as to what would be an acceptable roadside cafe. And I do think that would be a big mistake, and that's something we can discuss. That may not be in this change, but I would guess that that's the next thing that will come up. The other part of it is that substantial zoning changes were made as part of the reform, which meant that all parts of the city under the zoning laws could have outdoor cafes, because prior to the reform and the change, it was only like our district and lots of, swank neighborhoods in Manhattan that could really even have the outdoor cafe, right? They totally redid the review process so that it was all centralized under DOT, and having gone to the hearings and been involved with the other community boards, it was really a big battle to try to retain the role of community boards in their ability to comment and hold hearings and really have input. And at the end of that process, it wasn't perfect. The time periods, in my opinion, were way too short, but we did keep our ability to advise and review and even hold hearings, right? And a key point, for those of you who haven't been involved or done it yet, is that when the DOT, they hold their own hearings, there's really not much of a give and take. If you want to show up at their hearings and you're a citizen or a business and you have issues with a particular applicant, you can't even really ask them any questions, right? If we choose to hold a hearing, it's more of what all of you are used to with like our liquor license hearings, where we can talk to people and solicit opinions. It goes in YouTube. So, if you read the news articles, you'll notice that again, especially from the restaurant interests, right, and the trade groups, they're again after it. That the problem is the community boards, and they're part of, along with other issues, slowing it down with a long review process. So, the history of it is that has been, at issue. And we should all be aware of that. And if we're going to agree to changes, we should have that historical context. There were stronger penalties and enforcement mechanisms that were put in place. Big issue with the sheds and the sidewalk cafes was the sanitation and, rats and the perceived lack of cleanliness. And the big thing, and this goes to the issue of that's directly before us with this new law, is having a full year for the curbside cafes. And again, when we were actually going through this, in the community board and at the hearings, the balancing of the curbside cafes and the street cafes, sidewalk cafes, and how long and how big and the clearances and whether or not it was too much or too little. It was what we ended up with, even with, the 3-month hiatus during the winter, right, was at the time perceived as, something that attempted to balance the equities. At that time, again, you know, the restaurant and dining interest fought for year round, and it was very fresh in people's memories that we had these ugly sheds standing around in the middle of the winter that hadn't been taken down. And there were issues with parking and snow removal and fire safety. And, you know, just having it, you have it full year for the sidewalk cafes, but at least in my opinion, and I think the sentiment in the board at that time was that it was just a step too far for the curbside cafes. Now, one of the big issues that's driving this is the fact, and if you saw this in the articles, is that from approximately 8,000 establishments during the pandemic era, it's fallen down to 400 plus, right? So that's really stirred up a lot of comment. There's been a lot of articles in the press. It's mentioned in the 2 articles that Seth circulated. Some evidence suggests that it's due to, you know, the lack of the seasonal limit on curbside cafe and the cost of storage and concerns about the DOT review process and community board oversight, right? But I'm skeptical of that. It's more than just the seasonal stuff. It's a combination of a lot of things, the total cost of the revocable consents and the licensing fees, and the nature of the kind of equipment that you have to get and the investment in it. And the larger establishments can afford it and the smaller places can't, right? And I think it's not just an issue of just extending this, getting rid of the seasonality. It's all of these other issues taken together, right? The other thing that is a problem that we as a community board have to think seriously about is the fact that the reform and the change was supposed to spread the community boards out all across the 5 boroughs, not just like in our district and some of our neighboring districts where we've always had a lot of outdoor dining, or relatively speaking, we had more of it, right? So what we have, the 400 or plus that we have now, is all in the rich areas in Manhattan, or most of it. So that goes to the issue of equity, right? And the issue of equity, when we had our task force, that was something that we were very concerned about. So, you know, the issue of seasonality is just one piece of this, right? So if we're going to take a position on that, we can't lose fact. And we as a community board should argue for the other steps that might be taken to solve this problem. So the issue of the curbside dining, you know, that's an issue here. What I would advocate, and obviously we should talk about this among ourselves, is, you know, whether that in and of itself is really going to move the needle, and that whether that's going to upset the balancing of equities that took place when they passed the initial legislation. The issue which was just mentioned before about, again, the attack or the attempts to change or limit the community review, right? The community board's powers of review, because that's always a whipping boy. Every time in the hearings and during the debates about this, there was always a push to, you know, either cut back the community board's power to review, and even what we've seen happen, right? And those of you, this is something I talked about with Janice when she was the chair, is that in doing the due diligences, when you go out and talk to the restaurants, we heard that the Department of Transportation was telling the establishments not to talk to us. They were telling them to be non-compliant and not to talk to us. So that was terrible. And the reality is, you know, if you've done enough of these due diligence assignments, you know that our knowledge of the local communities, the granular knowledge we have, it just doesn't exist with the DOT, right? They haven't been around long enough, and they're not, except for the roadways, you know, specific to the roadways. That's just one small aspect of what happens when you vote to allow these sidewalk cafes. they should be working in tandem with us, right? And they should see that it's in their own best interest. But, you know, the evidence to date, I just don't see it, right? So I would be, if part of this is further limiting the community boards, and it's not just us, the other community boards feel this way. So if they're going to limit our power of review and cut it back even more, which I think Samir mentioned, I mean, that's something we really have to push back on, or at least talk about. The other issue, the next issue, is the administration, right? I was on record when the legislation passed. I was skeptical that DOT was the right organization to steward this, right? Because, you know, to a hammer, everything's a nail. To the Department of Transportation, everything is a car or a truck or a traffic island. The issue of where you site and permit outdoor cafes is so much more complicated than that. But, you know, the sentiment was, and the powers that be, you know, decided to approve it, and the DOT is handling it. It hasn't been that long that this has been in effect, and I'm not happy with the DOT. I think, as I mentioned, there are some issues there with how they've been not exactly been a good neighbor in terms of dealing with the community boards and the communities in some cases, but it's not long enough, right? In order for them to develop their expertise as a city agency in this area, they have to go around the block a few times. We have to gather evidence, and we have to see whether or not they're capable of doing this before we, you know, turn it over after this short time. Then there's the issue of pricing, right? So the pricing, what it actually costs for a license is the sum of the license fee, what they pay their lawyers or advisors, the revocable consents, which is another element. You know, when we were going through the process of advising the board, there was a lot of debate about how high the pricing should be and how could we know if it was the right amount and what would the impact be. And, you know, my big concern, and I actually went to, you know, some outside government financial watchdogs, and I tried to look at the numbers myself. It was questionable to me whether the money that was coming in was enough to support the enforcement that was badly needed, right? So if at issue in this legislation or the associated change in regulations that may go with it, right? If they're going to reduce it or change it, it's the same concerns apply, at least to my thinking. It's like if there's an issue, in addition to the year-round curbside cafes, and they want to address the issue of the lack of equity for the smaller businesses, there's a lot of creative things they could do in terms of alternating, you know, the pricing structure, or they could give subsidies, or they could, you know, lower it based on the size of the establishment applying. So that is something that we should pay very close attention to. Okay, so it's a complex picture. The big thing, and if you read my report, I said at the time, I said the whole thing of outdoor dining. It is a very worthy effort. It has to be seen as a reform to make things fairer and bring things out onto the street and build up our great city and have the outdoor dining be everywhere, not just in our neighborhood, right? And if it's slanted too much only towards the bigger establishments, or if it's perceived that it's a giveaway, you know, just to one industry, right? It won't be a reform. It'll just be another example of the government, you know, favoring the special interests. So I've been going on a little bit too long, but please read my comments. I went through it very quickly. Please read the task force reports, and all of us. This is our job in this committee. We have, and also the Transportation Committee. This is our job to consider this, learn the history and context, and give our colleagues on the community board, you know, the input and advice they need so that they can make the decision.
Thank you, Todd. So with that, we'll switch over to questions back for either Todd or for Samir, and then we'll move to comments from the public. So first, Kevin, I see you have your hand up.
Thank you. I'm not clear on why this is before this committee. I understand why it would go to the Transportation Committee, but why is it coming to this committee?
Yeah, I can. Let me start, and then Todd, if I miss anything, let me know. But
go ahead, Seth.
yeah, so it's coming to our committee because we ultimately, when businesses want to allow liquor service as part of these cafes, they do come to us. They have to apply to be able to serve liquor in the roadway cafes and the sidewalk cafes. So we're sort of weighing in on the quality of life side. Transportation weighed in specifically on the the issue around clearance on the sidewalks. So we're weighing in on sort of the other parts of it, around the seasonality, whether that affects quality of life, and operating hours, things like that.
Okay, so let's just stick with the aside from the quality, because we have a quality of life committee. But aside from that, those sorts of issues, just the liquor license itself, if you have a liquor license in place already and you get clearance from the DOT to have a sidewalk or roadway cafe, doesn't your liquor license just automatically transfer to that space because you're doing business in that space and the same rules would apply? Or are you saying to me that they would have to amend their license in some way to be able to operate in this different space, and that amendment, if I'm using the right word, would come to this committee because we do handle liquor license?
Yeah, they do apply essentially to serve the outdoor space. So the indoor license doesn't necessarily give them the right to serve outdoors.
If I may,
Yeah,
Seth,
go ahead.
so the SLAP committee put aside the issue of which is the appropriate committee to deal with any new licenses, right? The SLAP committee right now is the committee that deals with the due diligence and review of the licenses, and we have a process in place with a really terrific process where we have a series of easily completable online forms that incorporate the rules and the regulations, so that if any of us go out and have to actually do one of these due diligences, we do it, and it dovetails with the regulations. It's used by our committee chairs to generate a letter if necessary for comment or no comment or refusal, and it's really great. So, unless the community board itself decides to change the jurisdiction on this, it concerns us most directly because we're the ones that do the due diligence.
Yeah, well said. Okay, any other questions? Milan?
Yeah, thank you. I am trying to wrap my head around what this might mean for SLAP itself, as far as quite honestly, workload and the strain on our committee. Because on one hand, I see the potential increase in applications, which might mean more effort for SLAP. But I'm also seeing that we might be restricted from not being able to request more information or do more of our diligence. So maybe that counterbalances it. And I'm not sure what this means for SLAP in terms of being on top of the potential additional applications that might come in. So I'm just not sure how to make sense of it.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I would say there was a glut of applications right in the beginning. And Janice and the former chair and the committee sort of dealt with that, and Todd, of course, was part of that. And I think that there may be, to your point, an increase in applications temporarily, but I think at some point it would peter off to a manageable amount. And then in the beginning, if there is a glut, we could handle it in a similar way that we did then, which was really sort of a sort of bulk decisions that we made. So no, it's a good question, but I think it's something that we can. I'm confident we can handle. It just might be a busy month, and it wouldn't be put onto the members. So we'd make sure to, handle that and make sure it's not too much. Samir.
I think one nice thing is that if we do year round, in theory, the applications can come throughout the year. Right now, they're all coming at once because they need to come before the season starts. So in theory, it'll get spread out.
That's a good point. Yeah. All right. Any other questions before we go to the public? All right. Doesn't look like it. So let's go to the public. Is there anyone, since we're officially in public comment session, if there's anyone in the public who wishes to ask a question or make a comment, please click the raise hand button now. And as you raise your hand, I have a couple, not too many comments coming in, but I'll say this anyway. I do have a couple asks. We ask that you be thoughtful about your comment and try to avoid repeating what others have said. It's very helpful to us if you simply say you agree with a portion of the comments that another person made. That way we can register it. And with that, I will open up. So first, let me look at who's on here. Okay, we have Matt C. We will.
Hi, thanks.
Perfect. Yeah, please go ahead.
So I do agree with the comment that once you introduce colder winter weather, the jurisdiction of having these open air structures that are transparent, that are light, that are not heavy structures becomes a challenge, because how do you winterize them if you don't enclose them? So I appreciate that. I do have a question. The new rules that I saw said that all of these roadside setups will be open to midnight. And I've been to so many of your meetings now, and you so carefully say, when are you last serving? When are you closing? And if they're closing at 11, but the roadside now has jurisdiction to midnight, how is that going to play out? And then you've had applications, if it's a bar, you never gave them permission to do a sidewalk or outside, and you gave them the initial license under the condition that you knew there was never going to be an outside structure. So how do we review that going forward? There are absolutely amazing operators, but then there are really terrible operators. I would also, the size of the structure, I came from CB3 and now I'm in CB5. CB3 is more residential, but there are a lot of these structures where you've got 30 seats inside of the restaurant, but now they have 80 seats outside. And the garbage and the additional component, they don't have the inside structure to keep all of this garbage and the deliveries. I will note, I didn't see any of the notice that you said everyone should be distributed. As a public member, I didn't see what was put forward. So I don't know if that can be distributed to the public. And then enforcement. I can give you a dozen locations that have their doors propped open, that have their windows propped open, and the music from inside escalates outside. And I've done 311 complaints. The DOT is terrible. And even after going to the police, going to 311, there's zero to little enforcement. And then the last bit, the piecemealing of all of this, to start with the clearance of the sidewalk. Now we're talking about the size of the outside. What's next? I think trying to piecemeal it, every location is very specific, and it's hard to piecemeal the discussions without seeing the full context of it all together. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Matt. Next up, we'll go to Ant. And you should be able to unmute. Please go ahead with your comment.
Thank you, Seth, and thanks to the community board. In the past 5 years, you have been a tremendous, tremendous support to our community in protecting our quality of life. I live on East 17th Street between 5th and Union Square. It's a block with 14 restaurants. 8 of them have liquor licenses. Once again, with support from Community Board 5, we've been able to improve the quality of life on this block. At one point, we had 7 roadside dining structures which so narrowed our crosstown street that emergency vehicles could not always get through. As it is, our congested sidewalks barely allow room for pedestrians or those with mobility issues, mothers with carriages, dog walkers. Our experience has been that year-round outdoor dining, and this is firsthand experience, round-the-clock noise for residents. It invites inebriated, loud, sometimes dangerous behavior, garbage, filth, and vermin. And we witnessed this when these structures were taken down. I am opposed to year-round outdoor dining. This is a use of public space which does not benefit the public, but rather burdens residents by serving special interests at residents' expense. Please do not favor special interests. They must not be favored at the expense of residents. And again, thank you for your support.
Thanks so much, Ann. With that, we'll go to Karen. Karen, you should be able to unmute yourself.
I see. Thank you. Todd, thank you for your oversight and your report. It was really interesting, and all the issues you brought up about the equity and about the community boards itself and the issues you are facing. My name is Karen Flaherty, and I live at 11 East 17th Street. I'm a neighbor of Ann, and I've been a resident here in the same building since 1978, when it was owned by a labor union. We have seen many changes in this neighborhood, from small neighborhood businesses such as independent pharmacies, shoemakers, and tailors to mega restaurants, and now a record number of dining establishments on most ground floor storefronts, over a dozen on one block on both sides of the street. This block, dear Todd, and any anonymous interior designers, is not a Parisian boulevard, nor is it a small side street with cafes and small tables and umbrellas and neighbors having morning coffees, once reading newspapers, now looking at their phones. It is an active, well-trafficked thoroughfare, from 14th Street being closed to cross traffic. And it's a major transportation hub, Union Square. We love Union Square. And to be clear, we are not anti-business. In fact, we are pleased that restaurants are able to be successful and stay open from year to year, one year to the next. But without strict regulations and accountability by the city and the restaurant owners, these outdoor business models can and will negatively harm the residential community, with all the things Ann had already mentioned. I have to believe that there are creative, socially, and commercially conscious and responsible people from both sides that can create an environment where residents and small businesses can exist together. Hopefully, this proposal, if and when enacted, will be worked out so all parties are able to agree that, yes, we can coexist together equitably. I love that word, Todd. Small businesses, mega restaurants, community boards, and residential all living together. And finally, a quote I heard today: "We all do better when we all do better." Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karen. All right, it looks like, let me just make sure that we don't have any other hands raised. Oh, no, we do. Okay, I think we're all set. Okay, with that, I will move us into business session. So during business session, everybody here probably knows, but no additional comment from the public at this time is appropriate unless we request it, which we may do. To kick us off, I'm going to put in the chat some key issues that I've heard, just so we have it all before us. Let me paste it in. I'm just making sure that it's formatted in a way that is legible. Just a moment. Okay. That doesn't look great, but hopefully it is somewhat readable. So I see this in two different ways. First, I think we have some items we want to take a position on. There's 6 items here. We don't have to take an explicit position on every one, but I'd like to know if anybody is opposed to any one of these 6 items. The first is allowing grocery stores to apply for a sidewalk cafe license. That's not currently allowed. The key one, I think this is a big one, is removing the seasonal restrictions on operation of the cafes. The next is expanding frontage, like allowing people to expand frontage if they request it, and if the DOT approves, and if the neighboring business approves as well. There's a piece about community board input. It does seem to reduce our input by not allowing us to request additional items, additional materials after the initial petition is submitted. The hours, I think, will be something to discuss. And then the last piece is that currently the DOT can't require roadway cafes to be set back more than 12 feet from crosswalks and intersecting curb lines, and that's down from 12 feet. So it's a bit of a reduction. It allows it to be closer to the intersection. Some key issues I heard just playing it back is seems like cleanliness issues, including garbage and rats, overcrowding of sheds on the street, potential for the hours to be an issue for quality of life, the cost of the sheds being an equity issue, potentially preventing smaller businesses from applying. Access for emergency vehicles is another piece, and then of course maintaining community board input. So with that, I think you've all heard enough from everybody here. I want to kick it off to allow anybody to make additional comments from the committee. So yeah.
Yeah, sorry, just to clarify, for number 5, where is that in the is that like something they're changing in this introduction, or we just want to put a line in the sand that we don't want them to change it?
Josh, if I could ask you to weigh in there.
Yeah, so the current as it currently sits, 10 a.m. to 12 a.m. is what is allowed. But that can be negotiated or restricted by community boards. But this provision in this bill sets it at 10 to 12 and prohibits any further restrictions, be it from a community board or any other agency.
I see. Okay, got it.
Perfect. Next up is Kevin.
Thank you. I think if you're just polling and asking for, a gut reaction, I have not read through all of this, and I would like to read the task force report and the other materials that Todd provided. So if there's a vote tonight, I'm going to abstain because I don't feel like I have enough information. But with that said, I, as just off the brush, would not support any of the 1 through 6. As a resident, these all sound horrifying, and I don't have enough information to support that. But that being said, I don't think any of these rise to be the sort of real issue that we as a board or as a community board should be talking about. Todd mentioned the streamlining process that actually has the maybe intended, maybe unintended effect of curtailing the community board review. That seems to be the most existential sorts of issue in all of this. And, irrespective of what is done, if you take away the ability of community boards to actually weigh in and influence an outcome, then, we have completely lost. And I think that is the number one thing that must be preserved. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Kevin. So I definitely appreciate, sort of the need to get more information. I just want to quickly clarify with Josh. Do you Josh, do you happen to know if we would have another cycle to potentially allow people to get more information prior to actually voting on this, or are we limited to this cycle?
We're limited to this cycle.
Gotcha.
Now, if for some reason the bill doesn't pass, then we'll get another bite at it if it's reintroduced. But just to focus on the present, this is it.
Gotcha. So just to play that back, I think what we want to do then is if we feel not comfortable weighing in on any of these, we can sort of leave it out. But I think it's important that we pick the issues that we do care about, to your point, Kevin, and sort of make a comment on those, so that the city council is aware of our position. Next is Catherine.
Yeah, so I guess I'm seeking some clarification, but also making a comment on number 6, because I still feel like streetscapes are different in different parts of the city, and where the particularity and specificity is required is in the location of the restaurant. And so how do you have a blanket requirement when and it shows in the ones that are already open, the sidewalk cafes we already have, some of them look very appropriate and feel great, and others are like, why is this here? And on a day like today, in these weeks of all this snow, who has the opportunity to tell a sidewalk cafe, you really you should wait until the snow emergency is over? Or, some of the common sense things that we might think, I want people to have the business that they think they should have. And I want to, I'm here to participate. But again, it's really the focus on how do you engage this policy with specificity, because every location, this is a blanket, and every location is different, and the neighborhoods and what's appropriate. I guess I'm getting at appropriateness, that there should be some clause for appropriateness in a specific location.
I'm hearing that essentially you're opposed to the number 6 as written. Like you would want it to be more flexible to allow for different blocks to have different things.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's DOT and they know their sidewalks, but we don't know. And certainly from what we've seen in applicants, people are trying to be in business in different ways. And so we just want to be, I think it should be sensitive to the appropriateness for the location, both in its proximity and how much, some of these spaces are large, some are, some seat. I mean, I've passed by some where they're having like happy hour with 50 people in a small space, and others seem quaint and wonderful. And so I think we're not getting at like the different kinds of scenarios that are possible and already exist.
That's helpful. That's very helpful. Next we'll go to Samir.
Yeah, I am on board with all the positions. I think grocery stores should be able to have outdoor dining. I think that we should have it be year-round, so more restaurants, talking about balancing the equities, making sure small business owners can afford it, and then they can also have outdoor dining. I have no problem with number 3. Number 4, I don't really care either way. If we want them to not restrict what we can ask for, that's fine. If we want them to restrict what we ask for, also fine. Doesn't really matter to me. Number 5, happy to go either way. And number 6, I think, is also important because there are some restaurants that are on the corner, and it would be nice if they could have outdoor dining structures as well. So generally, I'm in support, especially of 1, 2, 3, and 6, because I want to make it easier for there to be outdoor dining, and I want as much outdoor dining as possible.
Perfect. Thank you, Samir. Next up, we'll go to Todd.
Let's see. Thanks, Seth. So, given the time frame and our need to comment, I would be opposed to taking positions in favor of all of these items at this time. Just speaking broadly, I think that we need more information, and we need more time to consider the input of the public on this. It's come up, relatively speaking, quite quickly. And as far, and again, just a personal anecdote. We heard from the public about, and from some of our members, about how important it is that there be flexibility and that somebody who actually knows the neighborhood can assess the impact. Just saying, we need more outdoor restaurants. The more we have, the better we are. This is New York City, where real estate is at a premium. Just because you have more doesn't make it better. That's not to say we can't be more equitable. We can. But I can tell you that from having done, I guess, as many due diligences as any, walking the streets, when I walk the streets, I look left, I look right, I look across the street, and I try to imagine, I count in my head the number of potential sites where people can have sidewalk, let alone curbside cafes. And in some cases, it's a clear answer that yes, there's enough room here. It's not going to interrupt the flow of traffic. In other cases, I look at it and say, my God, right? If we approve this one and then these other potential places all get them, this place is going to look like Koreatown did during the pandemic, where it's basically a tunnel with no light. So that kind of due diligence, the DOT is not going to do it. And passing, these major changes without the most careful consideration, I don't think is in the best interest of the district or the city.
Thank you, Todd. So I think, and Todd, just to actually ask one more question there. Are you saying, so you said you're not in favor of any of them, but are you opposed to them, or do you think we should just sort of not comment?
I think we should comment against them, but put in the context that there should be more study, and we want to see more evidence that the intended effect of these changes is not going to be counterproductive or overwhelmingly favor the restaurant industry and will actually lead to a more equitable result, right? I feel particularly strongly that they do not, look, even as it's drawn with the time periods we have to do the due diligence and the non-cooperative nature of the DOT, it was really hard for us to do our due diligence. But I got to say, if you look at the ones that we approved, it wasn't like we were NIMBY, right? We approved many of them, right? So I think that most community boards, or at least those, the ones, CB5, I don't think in any way we dug in our heels and threw sand into the gears. But I think we did a good job in making sure that the ones that we approved, didn't cause problems, right?
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, and immediately, again, I would urge everybody to take a look at my statement. I think that extending, the year-round seasonality, right? That was a fraught issue. 9 months of the year, they can have it, right? 3 months of the year, especially with the snow and the traffic, that was a key part of that compromise. So if we give in on that too quickly, I think it will be perceived as a giveaway to the special interests.
Thank you. Okay, so I think I have positions from Todd, Samir, and then Catherine, at least on number 6, and Kevin. Kevin also, I think, is opposed to all of them, but correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin. So I want to hear from others. So I want to hear who supports, who doesn't support. I'd like everybody, for time's sake, if we could really, deal with these 6 issues, and let me know if there's one we're missing, but I think these are the key 6 issues. So please weigh in on just the 6 issues, letting me know if you support or oppose, or if you don't want to make a comment on any of the 6. David, please go ahead.
Hi, thank you. So, all right. So number one, expanded eligibility, I'm fine with that. I think they should be treated fine. Year round, I'm leaning towards against that. I just don't understand how these structures will have any use in cold months and winter months, and we'll end up with kind of weird looking heated products in the middle of the street. And the fact that they can be kind of picked up and torn down, I think kind of preserves the sort of street nature of things as opposed to them being structured, permanent structures. So I'm leaning towards being against number two. Operating hours seem fine to me. Number four seems fine to me. The grandfathered ones are in, that's fine. Licensing process oversight seems fine to me. Fees and license terms seems fine to me. That my understanding is that that is a license fee that is on top of the rent that is paid for use of the space. And I think that the rent, I don't know how the calculation of the rent is, but I think it should be substantial and should be at least half the price per square foot of the actual market rent for the retail establishments. Transferability is kind of an interesting one for me. I don't know if this is something, why this is like this, but as somebody who is like transacted businesses before, I don't understand why this would be personal to the applicant as opposed to the business. I don't quite understand that. I mean, it makes me feel like I guess it gives the opportunity for the community to hold hostage somebody who wants to sell their property or not give them full value for it. So I don't understand number 7, and I would kind of strike it unless there's a compelling reason to keep it in. And then 8 seems fine to me. So those are my things. I like outdoor dining. I just don't understand why this would be the case, and for the 4 months of the year that it's far too cold. Thank you.
Gotcha. Thank you. So it sounds like you're in support broadly, just opposed to the number 2, the seasonal restriction. Sorry, yeah, seasonal restrictions. Right. Sorry, yeah, you're on mute.
Sorry, I'm opposed to 2 and 7.
2 and 7, thank you. Oh,
Unless
sorry,
unless somebody can tell me compellingly why 7 makes sense.
Sorry, which one is 7? I actually only have 6 on my.
Oh, I'm looking at the text. Did I?
It may be that I pasted it wrong. It's kind of messy. So that's
Oh,
totally fair.
I'm going off of the legislative text. So I don't.
Sorry.
Maybe I'm going off the wrong thing. I'm sorry.
No worries. No, I took notes on the side, but I pasted in the chat just so we can all be on the same page. The 6 key items I think we want to discuss.
Okay. Yeah, I'll look at that now. Sorry.
Thank you so much. No worries.
Grocery store is fine. Seasonal restrictions, that's the one I have issue with.
Gotcha.
Option to expand frontage, certain cafes of consent, that's fine.
Yeah.
Fine. Yeah, I'm fine with all of them except for 2.
Gotcha. Thank you so much. Perfect. And next up is Donna.
I think I'm overall supportive of outdoor dining on this list. I think the most troubling for me are 2 on seasonality, 5 on hours, and then 6 on distance.
Gotcha.
What's
So
your take
2,
on
5,
hours?
and 2, 5, and 6 you're opposed, Donna, just to clarify?
Yeah.
What's your take on hours?
I think it's just like goes to the theme of contextuality. If it's like a neighborhood that's quiet, that we already have RLA restrictions, or that there's already like a huge surplus of hours, then I think there's a grounds to have some flexibility in what can and cannot be done.
That seems fair.
Gotcha. All right. Next up, Milan.
Yeah, I think like others, I'm actually generally supportive of items 1 through 6, except for reducing the community board's input. I actually feel like a nice counterbalance would be if the community boards had more sway, because then I feel like that could counteract some of the concerns around seasonality or is it within the character of the neighborhood, et cetera, et cetera. So I kind of feel like the pendulum has swung a little bit too much in one direction. However, I am broadly supportive of all of this. I just think taking away some of that community board input is just a small step too far, and it tipped the scales enough for me to not feel totally comfortable with it.
Gotcha. Thank you. For those who have not weighed in yet, if you do have a strong opinion on any of them, you don't have to have an opinion on all of them, but please do let me know before we go to next steps. I'll sort of summarize, but I want to hear from everyone. I think we have Andrea, BJ, Catherine. I'd like to know what you're up. I think on the other ones, Gabby, Tom. Anybody else? If not, no worries. But I just want to make sure I give everybody a chance. Yeah, go ahead, Todd or Tom. Sorry.
I think I think the main when we're talking it's great, we're going through 1 through 6, and 6 kind of lays out some things, but it doesn't lay out like the enforcement, what are the responsibilities of enforcement on the DOT? Are they going to see something like I would recommend having some sort of guideline of how often the DOT is expected to see these sites. What are the because if they're going to say this is too slow, it's like, okay, but can the DOT needs to have some expectations if they're going to do and go these things. They have to at some point say just like a fire inspection, hey, they need to expect these things. And then it's not so much like, hey, we want the cleanliness, as more as what is the expectation of the DOT to enforce cleanliness? What's safety, right? We just had with parks the fires in the little stands, and they came back and the fire department said well, these are the expectations of the fire protection, stuff like that. So one of the things I would ask, not only for our input, but also a clear definition of how the DOT, what the DOT requirements are and the expectations that should be laid out to the DOT. I don't want to say in enforcement, but at least in regulating or monitoring the situation, right? Because otherwise, if they're gonna, they're gonna say oh, this is too slow. It's like, okay, but if you're not going to go do these things, then why would the community not have the ability to go and talk on it?
Thank you, Tom. Yeah, that's really helpful. I think I think I've heard that others agree, but let me know. Basically, I think we will want to have whatever our letter reads include things around cleanliness, expectations of the DOT. If anybody disagrees, let me know. But I think that sounds like it would get broad alignment from everyone. Yoden.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yoden and BJ right after that.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead,
I just
go ahead.
wanted to chime in on points 1 through 6. So I am opposed to 2 and 6. The rest I
Good.
support.
Perfect. Thank you very much. This is very helpful. I'm taking this off to the side, and I think we'll have a good sense of what we support here. BJ, go ahead.
Sorry, I should have technically raised my.
No,
Yeah,
no worries.
it's just a comment on number 2, remove seasonal restrictions on roadway cafe. And then also, I think there was something else. Yeah. Here, and this is just a comment, given, and this is an unusual weather situation we're having this month and last month, right? And one of the things that I hear in the news is about who's responsible for snow removal, who's responsible for in front of the bus stops. So again, if you have the seasonal restrictions on roadway cafe operation, and if that cafe is in front of the bus stop or something, so I just wonder about the limitations or expansion on it. It's a comment. I'm not opposing it, but I do think we need to, because if we're saying that grocery stores could apply for sidewalk cafe and they're opening it, but then there are seasonal restrictions, what is that restriction? According to DOT, right? About snow removal and who's responsible. And we also know that small business operations will be given tickets for not removing the snow. And again, this could be just one off that this year we're having this Arctic situation, but just a comment there.
Thank you. No, that's excellent. I think that's probably a concern that many share, given the weather. So there is a provision regarding snow removal. There has to be Let me see if I can paste it in the chat. 1 second. Yeah, there's a design piece where it has to be designed, and there has to be a provision for snow removal and sanitation in that design. I'm not certain what that looks like exactly, but so that's part of it. But yeah, to your point, it's something to include in the reso as well. All right.
Just to jump in,
Yeah.
the rule in the bill is that DOT has to create rules around snow removal, but it doesn't get into specifics.
Oh, so it requires them to create rules, but it doesn't actually specify them.
Yes.
Around snow. Thank you. That's very helpful. Andrea, yeah, please go ahead.
So I'm generally supportive except for number 5. And also I do have a question for would there be a guideline for, shed design? And because I have seen some really shitty shed like duct tape together type. So I'm just like wondering, because I think these are things that we should be consider, like either for like the neighborhood outlook or, just the safety or, and, yeah.
No, that's great. And sorry, wait, what was your last question there?
Yeah. Will there be a guideline for outdoor shed design if this is going to be a more long-term thing? Because I do, I think that we should also take into consideration for the safety of the shed or, the design, overall design, and the, how to integrate into the neighborhood, stuff like that.
Yeah, and Josh, you may be able to speak to this more. I know there are design requirements, but I think this expands what's currently allowed in the design.
Yeah.
But Josh, feel free to weigh in if you know more.
Yeah, the design restrictions are already in place and are pretty stringent. So any of the sheds that you would be referring to are already out of compliance. But this bill doesn't take aim at that.
Perfect. I think I saw Samir. Did you raise your hand, or are you all
Yeah, I just put the design guidelines in the chat. So if you wanted to look at them, they have them, and then some samples of what you should expect. And as Josh said, if they're not following them, they're already illegal, and this bill would not change that.
Gotcha. Perfect. That's excellent. Okay. All right. I think we've heard from many people. I think this is very helpful. I think I'm getting a sense that we support number 1 very strongly, the allowing the grocery stores to apply for sidewalk licenses. I'm getting a sense that we're mixed to opposed on the seasonal restrictions. We support number 3. We support the option to expand frontage. We support number 4, which is interesting. I want to pull people on that actually, which cites that the community board shall not require the petitioner to supply the board with additional materials, so effectively reducing our input. And then the hours, it sounds like we're mixed on that. We're opposed to the final one, requiring roadway cafes to be set back more than 8 feet from sidewalks. So I want to pull people because I'm not sure if I got everybody on number 4. Please raise your hand if you're in support of limiting the ability of the community board to request additional written materials. So if you support not allowing us to request additional materials, please raise your hand.
Wait, can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Sorry. So in the past, what have we requested? What additional materials do we actually request? I don't think I've ever asked for anything.
It's very rare.
That's why I think I'm fine with it, because from my limited experience reviewing these applications, I don't think okay, Todd is
it's limited, but we do request additional information just on their method of operation, sometimes hours if they intend to do differently than what's required, But Todd, feel free to weigh in if you have more. You're muted, Todd.
In the years that I've done these sidewalk cafes, and that includes both under the old program and the new program, there's all sorts of things that we ask for. If they had ped counts, we actually in the old days used to do our own pedestrian counts of people passing in front of the sidewalk cafes. So sometimes it was information either within the city or by the actual establishments that did it themselves in support of their applications to prove that the clearances were not a problem. We used to ask for that. We would ask if they had any knowledge of, any infractions or summons. We would ask if they had any detailed floor plans, site plans, that we couldn't get from the Department of Buildings or from the DOT. We would ask if they would give those to us. We would ask to see copies of architects' reports. We would ask to see, before they regulated very closely the design of the sheds or the actual furniture, we would ask to see about that. So I really believe that accepting that limitation is going to handcuff us. And if you do enough of these things, what you want in doing our job is enough flexibility to protect our residents. And it has the same thing to do with the hours of operation, right? I think Catherine mentioned it. The geometry and the vicinity of all of the different boroughs of Manhattan and where these things are going to go as to noise and sanitation, by locking in, specific hours on a citywide basis, I don't think that's the right way to go. The reality is, if we see that there's no problem and that there's no pushback from the residents, we're usually more than happy to go with what the regular hours for. But just like we do with liquor licenses, we have our own standards, and we try to stick to them and set precedents. But I think that's where I said in my earlier comments that by imposing these uniform standards for things like the hours of operation and our ability to ask for additional evidence, they're just kneecapping us.
I have a question. In the applications, isn't this information already in there? I've only done 2 of these, but they've always included all this information. That's why I'm a little confused. On the hours of operation, the plan, the site plan, drawing out everything, materials used, and so.
Yeah, one of the things that you'll see is that sometimes the plans that the DOT gives us are not even accurate, right? One of the concessions that was made to make it easier for people to apply and get their licenses was that they didn't hire there was no need to hire professional architects to draw up the plans, right? But many of them did anyway, because in marginal cases, right, like if you go out and you see, my God, it's going to be so close to this lamppost, or there's not enough it's going to be so tight when somebody goes by in a baby carriage, right? They would often create some of the places would hire their own architects anyway and take their own measurements. And the DOT, the plans they gave us often didn't even correspond or were inaccurate. So you never know with this stuff.
Thank you, Todd. The Samir next.
Yeah, just to agree with Yoden, I agree with Todd that there are a lot of issues with the plans, but none of that has to do with materials we're getting directly. So I don't think this change would actually impact us at all. Like if the plans that they give to the DOT are bad, that's not going to change just because they give the plans directly to us. So I don't see why it's relevant at all.
So it seems like I do want to focus. I'm trying to think how to craft a resolution that can achieve consensus here. I think it's going to be very tough. So I want to get to a point where I think what we want to do is we're not going to take a position on the legislation as a whole. I don't think that we could get agreement on that. I think we can take positions on a couple. It seems like we can take a position on one. It sounds like we support it. I don't think we have consensus either way on number 2, so I don't think we should take a position on that. And I'm just saying this so everybody, you can hear what you hear and then weigh in afterwards. But I think on number 3 we can say we do support that piece. I think on number 4 we should not take a position. I don't think we can get alignment on that. And then on number 5, I also don't think we can get alignment on that, on the hours. 6, I think we are opposed. I think we should write that we oppose that. So that's what I'm hearing. Let me know if you are very concerned about one of these and you really want to make a comment on one that I indicated I don't think we can get consensus on. But feel free to let me know. Given that this is a letter, like, we don't actually have to take a position on every one, but I think we should try to take a position wherever we can. Samir, please go ahead.
I do feel pretty strongly that we should allow number 6. I don't. What were the reasons people were opposed to it?
Number 6. Yeah, we had more opposed than in favor. If we could, maybe I'll just do a show of hands on that. If you could, and I have Todd's vote already, but if you could raise your hand if you're opposed to number 6, please raise your hand if you're opposed.
I was opposed as is.
Yeah, you're opposed as is. Yeah.
Around appropriateness and the fact that every street has its own vibe.
Yeah. So actually, yeah, everybody do what Gabby's doing if you are opposed to number 6. Please click the raised hand, like the react. It's on the react, and then
maybe I'll just like read out loud in case people are confused about what it is, just because it sounds.
Yeah, go ahead, please do.
Number 6 would make it so right now the roadway cafe has to be more than 12 feet from the intersection. This would make it so it has to be more than 8 feet from the intersection. So basically it can be 4 feet closer to the intersection. So I guess if you're opposed to that, that means you want to keep it at 12 feet. Just to make sure everyone's on the same page.
Thank you, Samir. That's very helpful. So if you're opposed to that, please raise your hand. It doesn't look like we're getting quite a majority here. Catherine is also on there. So 4 out of maybe 5 with Todd. You've got Todd. Okay, so I don't think we can get consensus on that. I'm not sure if those who voted, who opposed that, would be able to support a resolution that is in favor of it. But I think that we maybe can't include that. David, please go ahead. Oh, looks like you lowered your hand. Okay, so I think that's where we're at. It's to read it back. It's yes on allowing grocery stores to apply for a sidewalk cafe license. No comment on seasonal restrictions. Yes on expanding frontage for certain cafes on consent. No comment on the community board not requiring the petitioner to supply the board with additional materials. No comment on the hours, and opposed to the setting back from the avenue, or the street, or the intersection, I should say. So is anybody comfortable making a motion on that? Are there additional things we'd like to add? Or sorry, actually one more thing on that. The opposed piece there. Would people, Samir and Andrew, I heard that you support that. Would you be willing to vote for something, vote for a resolution that opposes that?
Sorry, for which number?
Number 6. If we support the other 2, we're supporting number 1 and number 3, opposing number 6.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't really care that much about it, so
Gotcha.
I'm willing to go with the team.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Same.
Same. Perfect. Thank you, Andrea. Okay. Perfect. I think we've got the outlines of a resolution. Does anybody want to make a motion, or Todd, I'll let you have one last word, and then we can go ahead. You're on mute.
This is a letter, right?
Yeah,
Not a resolution.
Exactly.
So I do think it's important that we show that we, even though I agree, at least in part, disagree at least in part with all 6 of them. I do think it's important that we make some kind of statement of support on some of the issues, because the tradition of SLAP is that we not be totally negative. we should be constructively positive, even when we're saying no. So I hope that whoever drafts the letter will mention some of the issues that I raised, the issues of equity and the issues of making sure that the community boards maintain their role, even if we're not, don't have a consensus on the issue. I hope that the letter can at least mention those concerns, because those have been historical concerns, traditional concerns of our committee and the board, at least when the resolution and the resolutions were passed. After the task force spoke.
Yeah, no, I think we agree. I think like the cleanliness issues, the overcrowding of sheds on the street, things like that. I think that's a common concern. So I agree. Okay, so are we ready to make a resolution? Who's willing to? I can also post in the group what I heard, but it's going to be really messy. But please feel free to make a resolution if you're willing. Zona, go ahead.
Motion to draft a letter in support of allowing grocery stores to apply for a sidewalk cafe license, in support of expanding frontage with certain consents, and expressing specific concerns around DOT requiring cafes to be set back more than 8 feet from crosswalks, highlighting the traditional concerns that SLAP and CB5 have raised surrounding outdoor dining.
Excellent. Thank you. Any second?
Second.
Perfect. All right. Thank you. Yoden, if you could take that to a vote, that would be great.
Okay. Seth.
Yeah.
Catherine.
Yeah.
Catherine there? Okay. Samir.
Yes.
Milan.
Yes.
Andrea.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Gabby.
Yes.
David Shapiro.
Yes.
Todd.
Yes.
BJ.
Yes.
Kevin.
No.
I am a yes. And Zona.
Yes.
Okay. Wait, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so the motion passes, 12 in favor, 1 opposed.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Yoden. Thank you, everyone. With that, we'll just very quickly go through our last item, which will be the SLAP tracker. I do want to quickly introduce it just so everybody knows what's going on. And hopefully this is somewhat exciting. So it's basically an update. Actually, sorry, before we go into it, I'd like to ask if we could stop the recording. We're going to make this actually an internal part of the session. So if you are a member of the public and you're not a member of the committee, thank you very much for joining. If you could please sign off when you're able, that would be excellent. And then perfect. Thank you, Josh. All right, one moment. All right, perfect. So just very quickly, we have a new tracker that we're going to use to track diligences, and there's really 2 goals here. The first of which is to hopefully make the due diligence process very clear to everyone, even new members. We remember what it was like to